Welcome to Back to the Feature, where I watch the full movie so you don't have to. I'm your host, Dwayne, and today we're diving into the Frighteners from 1996. Before Peter Jackson took on the Lord of the Rings, he put Michael J. Fox, of all people, in a horror movie filled with supernatural chaos. The movie starts off on a dark and scary night as young Patricia Bradley is being chased through her gothic home by some unseen angry spirit. Just as the dark force gets a hold of her, Patricia's mom saves her. Nothing like a good old shotgun blast to the head. Problem solved. The local newspaper editor is preparing a story about the third mysterious death within a week in their sleepy town of Fairwater. Something is afoot and people are dropping like flies. Frank Bannister arrives at the funeral of the latest victim and hands out his psychic investigator business cards. Big shocker that he's almost instantly thrown out. Frank drives off and has zero respect for things like traffic lanes, roads in general, or people's yards. He crashes through a white picket fence right in front of Ray Linsky. As he leaves, he takes extra care to murder a defenseless garden gnome. See what I did there? Ray's wife, Lucy, is a new doctor in town, and she's checking in on Patricia, who managed to cut herself. Lucy sees bruises on Patricia's neck, but before she can say anything, Mrs. Bradley rudely escorts her out with the warning that she doesn't know who her daughter is and that she's not to be trusted. Lucy watches a videotape about local psycho Johnny Bartlett killing 12 people at the sanatorium in 1964. He was trying to get the record for the most kills. You know, because everything's a contest. Johnny had help from Patricia Bartlett, who was only 15 at the time. Johnny got the electric chair while she got life in prison, even though there was no proof she participated in the killings. Eventually, she was released to her mother's custody. When Ray finds Frank's business card in his house, suddenly everything goes crazy. The house starts shaking like an earthquake, bed sheets are flying, and Lucy takes a ride on a floating bed just like in Poltergeist. Despite Ray's objections, Lucy calls Frank for help. Frank shows up, takes out more of the fence, and kills more gnomes in the process. He begins investigating as Ray is beyond skeptical. Frank quotes him $450 so they can call it even for all the fence damage. He captures the offending apparitions in a giant toaster-looking device, Ghostbuster style. He pulls out a little doggy bag that he says holds the ghost, and he offers it to Lucy for a souvenir. As he starts packing up, Frank freezes when he sees the number 37 carved on Ray's forehead. Ray and Lucy walk Frank out, and we see that same dark spirit that attacked Patricia reaching out through their wall. Frank returns home, and we find out the secret behind his business as two ghosts climb out of his trunk. His little business model is pretty clever. The two friendly ghosts, Cyrus and Stuart, terrorize the house, then Frank shows up to cleanse the place for cash. The next morning, we meet the judge and his dog, who also happens to be a ghost. He's a gunslinger from the Old West who seems to have trouble keeping his lower jaw attached. This guy has seen some things. The judge is feeling pretty worn down and thinking about retiring to his funeral plot in the cemetery. He even tries to tell Frank that he should give it up too. He tells Frank that
death ain't no way to make a living.
The local paper outs Frank as a scam artist, so he goes to confront the editor only to get sent packing. On his way out, a funeral procession drives by with Lucy in one of the cars. When he turns around, Ray's ghost shows up asking for help. Frank gives him the Ghost 101 TED Talk, and after he finally calms down, Frank gives him a ride to his own funeral. As they walk through the cemetery, Ray freaks out a bit at the sight of the other ghosts, but it's just another day at the office for Frank. We then meet R. Lee Emery in full metal jacket mode as Master Sergeant Hiles, who guards the cemetery and does not like Frank one bit. He doesn't like how Frank uses spirits to scam money out of people. After the funeral, the sheriff tells Frank that the FBI is getting concerned about all the people dying in town. On the surface, they look like heart attacks, but the autopsies show that their hearts were perfectly fine. Lucy tells Frank that even though everyone says he's a fraud, she still believes in his abilities and needs his help to talk to Ray. So that night, Frank has dinner with Lucy while Ray tags along as the dead third wheel. During dinner, she asks Frank how he can see ghosts. He just says that he was in an accident and the traumatic experience changed his perception. Beyond that, he wouldn't give her any details. In the men's room, a man walks in to go number 1, and Frank sees the number 38 on his forehead. He hides in a stall as a hooded figure appears and reaches into the man's chest before disappearing back into the mirror. Frank just stands there as a bright light appears as his spirit lifts up out of his body and floats up into the light. Frank jumps into his car along with Cyrus, Stuart, and the judge to chase after this killer. At the police station, the sheriff learns that Frank was the last one seen with the victim, so he has no choice but to have Frank brought in. In the meantime, he interviews Lucy about her dinner with Frank when FBI Special Agent Milton Dammers shows up. Jeffrey Combs is perfect as Dammers, who is a total nutcase with all kinds of issues. We quickly learn that he can't handle women yelling at him. It's his kryptonite. Oh, and he doesn't like to be touched. The sheriff explains the Dammers' weird behavior is due to years spent undercover with various cults while working as a paranormal psychologist, which is just a nice way of saying he's batshit crazy. Dammers tells Lucy the story Frank didn't tell her at dinner. While building their dream home, a worker saw Frank and his wife argue because Frank had built a basketball court where he had promised her a garden. That same worker later saw them drive off just before Frank crashes the car and his wife Deborah is killed. Frank was picked up 2 hours later wandering through the woods with no memory of what happened. Dammers then tells her that Frank kept a knife with his initials on it in his toolbox in the car. After the accident, the knife was missing and has never been found. When Deborah was found, she had the number 13 carved into her forehead. Frank sits in his car as the judge tells Cyrus and Stuart that what they saw was the soul collector. He's a dangerous spirit that has been around since the beginning of time, and he can even take out ghosts. A beam of light hits the local museum, meaning someone just died. Frank shows up to investigate with his trusty ghostly companions in tow just as someone is giving CPR to a guy on the floor. When the ghost of the man turns to look at Frank, he has the number 39 carved on his forehead. Then up into the light he goes and the CPR stops. He then sees the newspaper editor and she has the number 40 carved on her forehead. When Frank tells her she's next, she instantly takes it as a threat, and you can't really blame her. The police show up and things escalate quickly as guns are pointed at Frank and the soul collector shows up. Before the soul collector can attack, shots ring out and Frank turns around to see the judge walking in, firing away with both guns like he was back at the OK Corral. At first it looks like the judge took care of business because the soul collector collapses and disappears into the floor. While the judge is celebrating his victory, he gets distracted by a mummy display and decides to get some supernatural lovin'. In a comedic moment, we see the judge's butt going up and down out of the sarcophagus. While the cops are distracted, Frank makes a break for it and all hell breaks loose. The cops start shooting but only manage to kill a bunch of ancient artifacts. Frank is making his getaway and the judge is back on his feet after his little romp in the sack. No one sees the soul collector until it's too late though. He comes up behind the judge and cuts him clean in half. Frank grabs the editor as a hostage and gets a quick assist from Cyrus and Stuart. Not only are the cops chasing him, but now he has the soul collector in hot pursuit as well. Frank ends up driving down the exact same road where his wife died. With the soul collector on top of his car, Frank wrecks in the same spot of the original accident. His hostage crawls out of the crash, still thinking Frank is trying to kill her. Doesn't matter though, because the soul collector gets to her before Frank and does his heart squeeze maneuver and yeah, she's dead. Back at the station, Agent Dammers tells the sheriff that they'll most likely never see Frank again. It's a pretty good gag when Frank walks in just as he says it. He's put into cuffs and tells Lucy to go home, and he pretends to be the bad guy by saying that the dinner with Ray's ghost was all an act. Dammers gets Frank in the interrogation room where Frank tries to tell him about the soul collector and his ability to see spirits, but Dammers sticks to his belief that Frank is the actual killer. Frank starts shaking under duress and Dammers thinks he's trying to use mind control to kill him. Well, Dammers came prepared because he's wearing a lead breastplate. This dude is operating on a whole other level. The next day, Lucy pays a visit to Frank's house to learn more about him while Ray decides to tag along. His phone rings and it's Mrs. Bradley calling to ask Frank for help in driving the evil one from her house. Frank's in jail, so naturally, Lucy goes in his place. She sneaks into the Bradley house and finds Patricia upstairs. They hide in her mom's room and Lucy tells her that she knows her mom is the one that's been hurting her. Patricia is her usual creepy self and she has a weird obsession going on with an urn. Patricia breaks down, telling Lucy that her mom says she's evil, just like Johnny. She says that Johnny went crazy and she couldn't get away from him. Lucy jumps into the closet when they realize dear old mom is coming. Stuck in the closet, Lucy has nothing else to do but snoop around. Almost immediately, she finds Frank's missing knife with his initials on it. I wonder how that got there. She takes the knife and sneaks out once the coast is clear, and on her way downstairs, the lid on the urn opens up and smoke is released. That can't be a good thing. Lucy heads out the front door just as the soul collector starts poking from the wall. Ray has finally gained the courage to come inside to protect Lucy, but his timing is terrible. The first thing he sees is the last thing he sees. Poor Ray. Lucy goes back to see Frank and she tells him about the knife and Mrs. Bradley. They share a moment and hug just before everything goes to shit. She now has the number 41 carved on her forehead and the soul collector is coming through the door. He reaches into Lucy's chest and starts squeezing until Cyrus and Stuart step up in the clutch trying to protect her from the Reaper. Lucy and Frank break out after watching the soul collector kill Stuart. Cyrus holds him off while they make a run for it. Dammers tries to stop them, but Lucy tricks him so they can get past him. Sadly, in the process, poor Cyrus is taken out. Frank realizes he can't beat death while he's alive. He has to kill himself. He puts a gun to his head, but thankfully Lucy's a doctor and she has a better way to kill him. At the hospital, she gives Frank a shot to slow his heart rate and lower his body temperature. She then puts him in a storage freezer and tells him she'll try to revive him in 20 minutes. Any longer than that, she might not be able to bring him back. She closes the door and starts the timer, and then that jackass Dammers shows up and ruins everything. He plans to let Frank die and stay dead. So Frank dies as planned, and the white light shows up for him, but he ignores it to go look for Lucy. Dammers took off with her in his car and now has Frank and the Soul Collector after them. Frank catches up for a brief standoff with the ghoul, allowing Dammers and Lucy to get away. Dammers drives to the cemetery and leaves her in the car when she starts yelling at him again. This guy is a total freak. He opens his shirt to display all the different scars and tattoos from his time undercover. Like, no one wants to see that. He thinks all of it gives him special mind powers, and he starts tripping. While he's babbling on, Lucy works on her escape and the Soul Collector is coming up fast. The car suddenly starts on its own and starts rolling away, which makes Dammers' wacky ass think he's making the car move with his mind. It's actually Frank behind the wheel. At least until Sergeant Hiles yanks Frank out of the car, causing it to wreck into a crypt, sending caskets and bodies everywhere. One even manages to knock Dammers out, which shuts him up for a bit. Sergeant Hiles then faces off with the Soul Collector, but his bravery lasts all of 2 seconds as he's cut down instantly. Lucy is almost toast again, but Frank saves the day by doing his best impression of Sergeant Hiles, which allows her to escape. Frank keeps firing, chipping away at his enemy. He finally tears the dude's face off and demands to know who he is. Turns out the Soul Collector is just Johnny Bartlett, back from hell doing some cosplay trying to up his kill count. I guess it's good to have goals. Frank gets him restrained, and just as he's about to kill Johnny, he's pulled back to life by Lucy. Worst timing ever. After all that, he's right back where he started. He tells Lucy about Johnny and that she needs to get Patricia out of that house because she's in danger. When Mrs. Bartlett finds out that Lucy had been in her room, she goes upstairs with Patricia following after her, leaving Lucy to snoop around a bit. Patricia comes back down saying that her mother wants to go to the police now and will be down in a few minutes. Lucy tells Patricia that Johnny's back, but Patricia already knows. She admits that Johnny has been visiting her. Johnny's ghost comes in the room and obviously Lucy can't see him. He tells Patty that he wants to kill Lucy now so they can have 41 kills. Lucy thinks Patty's a bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when she starts stroking her hand through the air. She's actually stroking Johnny's cheek as he kneels next to her. There's some great acting here from D. Wallace Stone playing a crazy person trying to be normal. Patty goes to get her coat and turns on a dime once she's alone with Johnny in the kitchen. Her whole demeanor changes as she selects a giant knife while Lucy goes up to check on Mama Bradley, who she finds dead as a doornail in a scene straight out of Dexter. Before she can react, Patty comes up behind her with a knife, screaming like a mad woman. Lucy's a survivor though, and she fights back and gets away. Unfortunately, Patty trades her knife in for a shotgun from her loot crate, so Lucy is at a big disadvantage. Plus, now she has to fight off ugly Carpet Johnny, who's trying to kill her with rug burns. Frank bursts through the front door just in time to get her free. It's only a temporary reprieve because Patty comes out blasting holes in the wallpaper. In the bedroom, Johnny comes through a painting to attack Lucy, but Frank saves her life yet again by destroying the painting, sending Johnny's spirit scrambling to the urn. They trap Bartlett's ghost inside the urn that they now realize holds his ashes. Their next move is to take it to the abandoned sanatorium chapel, where Frank hopes consecrated ground can finally help send Johnny back downstairs where he belongs. Once inside the hospital, Frank begins experiencing psychic flashes of the original 1964 massacre. He sees that Patricia wasn't some manipulated bystander. She was an active participant in the killing spree, happily helping Johnny turn the hospital into a slaughterhouse. Lucy and Frank are headed to the chapel, and guess who shows up? Yep, that crazy bastard Agent Dammers. They don't have to worry about him yet because Patty is a bigger problem when she catches up to them and comes pretty close to shooting him. Frank and Lucy get separated, giving Dammers a chance to grab Lucy, but she fights her way free. She gets sidelined when the elevator jams, so she hands the urn off to Frank, who promptly screws around and it ends up in Dammers' hands. Dammers goes out of his way to be a total dick as he pours Johnny's ashes out, destroying any chance of getting them to holy ground. To top it off, he pulls out an Uzi and shoots Frank in the arm. Patty takes aim at Frank, but he ducks at the last second and Patty blows Dammers' head off. The look on his face is priceless. Frank falls through the floor all the way down to the first floor where he lands on a gurney. Patty then shoots at Lucy, but only manages to fix the jammed elevator, allowing her to get back down to Frank. Patty's crazy fast though. She gets downstairs and brains Lucy with the shotgun while Frank flashes back to his memory of Deborah's death. Bartlett's ghost killed Deborah, and Patricia did the number carving, which clears Frank of the guilt for a murder he didn't commit. Patty's about to kill Frank, but she finally runs out of ammo, causing her to have to choke him out while Lucy and Johnny watch. Johnny is stoked while Lucy's pretty bummed as Frank keels over dead. Patty's about to take a pickaxe to Lucy when she's grabbed from behind. Now in spirit form, Frank yanks her soul from her body and drags it up towards heaven and tells Johnny, "Hey, come get your girlfriend." Johnny has no choice but to jump into the light to get her back. He's swimming like a fish going upstream and finally pulls her away from Frank, leaving him to continue on up to heaven empty-handed. Johnny and Patty are about to turn around and go back down as Frank watches from above. He's about to jump back in after them when he's greeted by Cyrus and Stuart, who are no longer in spirit form. Suddenly, everything around Johnny and Patty takes a dark, sinister turn, and Cyrus and Stuart warn Frank to stand back a bit because it's about to become unpleasant. They're attacked and violated by hundreds of little tentacles with teeth. The camera pulls back to show they're now inside a giant tentacle beast and they're swallowed up and taken back down to hell. Now that the worst is over, Frank is greeted by Deborah, who tells him it's time for him to go back home and live his life. Cyrus and Stuart then kick him out of heaven. Back on Earth, Lucy is crying over Frank's dead body and can't believe it when he opens his eyes. Johnny and Patty are dead. Agent Dammers is dead. Good riddance to the lot of them. In the epilogue, Frank and Lucy share a romantic picnic and watch as his house is demolished. The love fest is interrupted when the sheriff pulls up, wanting to see if Frank wants to collaborate on a book about the murderers. Frank turns him down and tells him maybe he should consult with his guardian angel as he gestures to the car. The sheriff doesn't see anything and laughs, thinking Frank's cracking a joke. As the sheriff drives away, we see Dammers sitting in the back seat looking like a sad puppy. Lucy comes up behind Frank and says, "Boy, that Dammer sure looks pissed." Frank turns around stunned that she could see him too. She reminds Frank that sometimes going through a traumatic experience can alter your perception. And then we fade to black as the song "Don't Fear the Reaper" starts up. That's the Frighteners. Part ghost caper, part serial killer mystery, part afterlife action movie, and somehow still one of the most underrated entries in Peter Jackson's catalog. This movie didn't do well at the box office for a couple of reasons. First, it was released around the same time as Independence Day, which was a huge hit. Then it was marketed more as a comedy with Michael J. Fox in the starring role. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, drop your favorite scene in the comments, and subscribe for more retro cinema every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next Back to the Feature.